few more questions. What is your view of Citizens United based on your constitutional vision?
Citizens United. This is, in my view, a very easy case. Scalia's opinion here, I think, is quite strong. And let me see if I can state the way in which this thing starts. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. This is actually a federal regulation. And it's a perfectly general type proposition under these circumstances. And it doesn't identify who are the speakers. So the question then is, corporations are said to be artificial beings, and so therefore they can be subject to regulation. But there are two very powerful things that you have to remember. One is that the creation of a corporation is done by the state, and it's not done by the federal government. So the question now is, why is it that the federal government could regulate corporate speech in a particular way when it's the states that have the power over incorporation? The second thing that one has to do is a doctrine known as unconstitutional conditions, which says the federal government may or may not do something, but it cannot condition it on certain kinds of activities. So the federal government cannot say, yes, you're entitled to use federal highways, but you have to waive your Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable searches and seizures. Essentially, any time the state has a monopoly power, there's a quid pro quo under classical liberal theory as to the conditions it can impose. And I wrote a book called Bargaining with the State, which in nauseating detail went through all of these kinds of permutations. And asking people to suppress their right to speak because they have limited liability against contract and tort claims is crazy. A condition that is perfectly acceptable is one which says, we're not holding you responsible in torts beyond your assets, but we're going to require you to get insurance if you want to run this nuclear power plant and so forth. That would be an illustration on the other side. And then the third point to make is that this is just a question of whether or not you could stop pre-election speaking within 30 days of an election or 90 days, depending on what it is. This is core political speech as far as I'm concerned. And the idea that somehow or other you can block that because corporations do bad things, it's crazy. Citizens United isn't a real corporation. There's a political operation, Citizens United. They don't make anything. They wanted to put out the film called Hillary the Movie. The idea that a partnership could put that out without restrictions and a corporation can't is crazy. Now, real corporations, their view is they run for cover. I've worked with these guys. First thing they do when they see Citizens United is, please, we're taking a vow of silence because we don't want to have to speak out for gay rights, against real rights, for pollution, against pollution. We're trying to sell beer. Right? And the guy, for example, who ran Whole Foods, who's something of a libertarian, who campaigned one day against Obamacare, found himself with a massive boycott on his hands within 48 hours. These guys are timid. People who have to sell into consumer markets are the most pusillanimous people on the face of the globe when it comes to taking political statements. And so it's a non-problem that you're worried about. Bribery, other kinds of stuff is already regulated by existing laws that nobody does. I think this is just wildly overstated in terms of a serious issue. And I have to say that the Justice Stevens opinion, right? I admired his dissent, great dissent in Heller, right? I thought his dissent in this case was dreadful beyond words.